All right, strap in everyone, because today we are taking a deep dive into a mystery that has puzzled people for, well, almost a century.
A mystery that blends real-life science with almost like a spy novel disappearance.
It's the case of Ettore Majorana, this brilliant Italian physicist who vanished in 1938.
And not just any physicist. I mean, seriously, this guy was doing groundbreaking theoretical physics.
And then, poof, gone,
Yep. Boarded a ferry and was never officially seen again.
leading to tons of theories. Did he fake his own death?
Retreat to a monastery.
Or, okay, hear me out, something even crazier.
It's a question that has haunted, well, not just the scientific community, but anyone who loves a good mystery.
But today, we're looking at a report that throws a huge wrench into all of this. It involves Rolando Pelizza, one of Majorana's students, who claimed to have met him years after everyone thought he was gone.
Years later, can you imagine?
So Pelizza, he was so convinced that he commissioned this, in-depth photographic analysis. They compared known photos of Majorana to pictures of this guy Pelizza claims to have met in the 50s.
He even got handwriting analysis done on some letters, trying to prove it was really Majorana. That's dedication.
What's impressive about this report, though, is how seriously they took it. The engineer who did the analysis didn't just, glance at the photos and say, yeah, close enough.
No way. They went all out, made sure the pictures are authentic, used all these scientific methods to see if it was really the same guy.
So let's dig into this report. It focuses on what they found from this photographic analysis using a multi-pronged approach, you could say.
Hmm.
First up, they did a physiognomic analysis, basically a really detailed comparison of all their facial features.
Like every little detail.
And what they found is pretty wild.
Yeah, the similarities between the known Majorana photos and the ones from Pelizza, they're really striking.
But we're not talking about just oh, they both have brown hair or whatever. The report goes on and on about specific tiny details they share.
Down to the shape of their noses, how their eyebrows curve, even that they both have slightly protruding upper teeth. It's a lot.
It's crazy. But hold on, it gets even more intense. They didn't just stop at looking at similarities. They did all this metric stuff too.
Yeah, they didn't just eyeball it. They measured every little thing, like the proportions of their faces, the angles, all with super precise tools.
And this allowed them to make objective comparisons, even factoring in how people's faces change as they age. We're talking calculating the exact distance between their eyes, the width of their noses, all sorts of angles and ratios.
Oh yeah, they got super specific. And that's how they got to the really interesting part, using what's called the student test. This is a statistical tool, and they used it to figure out the likelihood that these two guys were actually related based on all these measurements they took.
Okay, so break it down for me. What does this test actually do?
So imagine you flip a coin 10 times and it lands on heads every single time. Possible. Yeah, but the odds are super low.
Right, you'd think something was up with the coin.
Exactly. And the student test helps figure out if the differences between two sets of measurements are just random chance, like that weird coin, or if there's a real connection.
Okay, I'm following. So they used all these measurements, this fancy test. What did it actually say about the faces in these pictures? Did the numbers back up what they were seeing with their eyes?
It did, and the results were pretty wild. The test basically said that there's a really high chance that these two faces aren't just randomly similar.
They're probably the same person?
Yeah, the odds of two completely unrelated people having that many matching measurements, it's almost impossible.
Wow, so the math agrees with what they were seeing. But hold on, they didn't just stop there. The report goes on to talk about how they used, get this, face recognition software to analyze the photos, too.
Oh yeah, this is where it gets really high-tech.
And I'm not talking about the filters you use on your phone. This is serious stuff, the kind they use for, criminal identification and security.
Exactly, it's sophisticated stuff. It basically analyzes every little detail of your face and creates a unique fingerprint for each person.
And then it compares those fingerprints to see how similar they are.
Right, and in this case, the similarity scores they got, they were way high, way past the threshold they usually use to say two pictures are of the same person.
So it's we've got these experts looking at the photos, we've got the math saying it's likely the same guy, and now we've got this super advanced computer program backing it up too.
Yeah, it's pretty convincing. But wait, there's one more thing they did, something called average face generation.
Average face generation. Okay, you're going to have to explain this one.
Okay, so imagine you take the two photos, the one of Majorana and the one Pelizza had, and you kind of like morph them together.
You blend them.
Yeah, you blend them so you create this like average face, and this helps you see even more clearly all those features they share.
Well, that's smart. Like it
Yeah.
takes away some of the distractions and just highlights the common ground.
Exactly. And they included the results in the report, and honestly, it's hard to deny the similarities when you see it.
Okay, so let me get this straight. We've got meticulous facial comparisons, precise measurements, statistical analysis, face recognition software, and this average face thing, all pointing towards the same conclusion. It's almost too good to be true, right? Like, this has got to be making waves.
It is exciting, but it's important to remember we're talking about something that, if it's true, would change history. This idea that Ettore Majorana, this genius who everyone thought just vanished, might have been living a secret life all along, that's huge.
No, you're totally right. Extraordinary claims need extraordinary evidence. So let's play devil's advocate for a second. What are some things that could challenge this analysis? Are there weaknesses or limitations we should be aware of?
Well, even the best face recognition software isn't perfect, right? Things like the quality of the photo, the lighting, even the angle it was taken from, those can all affect how accurate the results are. And of course, there's always the tiny chance that someone out there just happens to look incredibly similar to Majorana.
I mean, I've seen those news stories where someone gets misidentified from a blurry security camera image. It happens. So, yeah, even though this report is really impressive, we got to stay a little bit skeptical.
Totally. And we also can't forget that this photographic analysis, even if we believe it, it only tells us one part of the story. Even if this guy in Pelizza's photos is Majorana, it doesn't tell us why he disappeared or where he went or what he was doing all those years.
It's like finding one piece of a giant puzzle. It helps, but it doesn't give you the whole picture. And that's where Pelizza's story comes in, right? He claims that he actually met and talked to Majorana in Venezuela years after he disappeared. What does he say happened?
Pelizza says that Majorana chose to live a quiet life in South America. Maybe even continued his scientific work under a different name. He even describes conversations they had about physics, philosophy, and Majorana's reasons for disappearing.
It's a good story, but it's hard not to wonder if he's maybe embellishing things a bit. I mean, Pelizza has a lot writing on this, right? He clearly put tons of time and effort into proving his story is true.
Yeah, like any eyewitness account, it's a piece of the puzzle, but we can't just take it at face value. We need more evidence to back it up.
So if we're going to go deeper down this rabbit hole, what else can we look at? Where do we go from here to find more clues and maybe solve this mystery once and for all?
Well, the first thing we got to do is try to verify what Pelizza is saying. Are there any records of Majorana being in Venezuela during that time? Did anyone else see him there? Maybe immigration records, financial transactions, anything that puts him in that place at that time.
Right, like a paper trail. It would be amazing if something official popped up to support Pelizza's story.
Totally. Another thing we could do is look at how the scientific community reacted to this report. Did it inspire any new research? Did anyone try to, like, double-check the analysis or follow up on the leads it uncovered?
Yeah. Did it change anyone's mind? Did it lead to any new investigations into Majorana's disappearance?
And of course, we can't forget about the human side of things. Who was this Rolando Pelizza guy? What was his relationship with Majorana really like? What made him spend so much time trying to figure this out?
It's important to understand where this whole story came from. Was Pelizza a reliable source? Was he just looking for the truth, or was there something else going on?
It's like peeling back the layers of an onion. The more you look, the more complicated it gets.
Which is exactly what makes this whole deep dive so fascinating. It's not just a history mystery. It's like science, philosophy, and a human drama all rolled into one. So here we are. We've looked at this report that suggests Ettore Majorana might not have disappeared after all. We've talked about the good and the bad of the evidence, and we've come up with some new ways to keep digging. What are your thoughts on all of this? Does it change how you see this whole mystery?
I mean, it's a lot to take in, right? Like, on the one hand, we have this seriously detailed report that seems to be saying Pelizza might actually be right.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, the whole thing just sounds so unbelievable, almost too crazy to be true.
I get it. It's hard to know what to think.
It really is. But that's kind of the cool part, isn't it? It makes you wonder, like, what if?
Absolutely. This report, it doesn't give us all the answers, but it opens up a whole world of possibilities.
Right. It makes you question everything you thought you knew.
And embrace the mystery, you know.
Okay, so where do we go from here? What else can we do to figure this out, maybe find more pieces of this puzzle? Well, I think the first step is to try and back up what Pelizza is saying. Like, Are there any official documents or records or even other people who can confirm that Majorana was in Venezuela?
Yeah, like some kind of paper trail. Imagine if we found like immigration records or financial transactions, anything that puts Majorana in that place at that time.
Exactly. That would be huge.
It would. Another thing we could look at is, like, how did other scientists react to this report? Did it spark any new research? Did anyone try to, double check the analysis or follow up on any of the leads?
Yeah, that's a good point. Did it change anyone's mind about the whole thing?
Right. Did it lead to any new investigations into Majorana's disappearance? And we can't forget about, like, the human element here. Who was this Rolando Pelizza guy? What was his relationship with Majorana really like? Why did he spend so much time trying to figure this out?
Yeah, that's important too. Was Polita telling the truth? Or was there something else going on?
It's like trying to figure out the person behind the story, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
And the more you dig into it, the more complex it gets.
Which is honestly what makes this whole deep dive so interesting. It's not just about finding the answer. It's about the journey of trying to figure it out.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up our look at this crazy mystery, I want to leave you with this. What if Pelizza is right? What if Ettore Majorana really did decide to just disappear, to live a secret life, to keep doing his science away from the public eye?
It's a big what if.
It is.
Yeah.
What would that mean for how we understand his legacy, his reasons for leaving, and, like, the whole idea of scientific discovery itself?
Makes you think, huh?
It really does. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. It's been a wild ride, and we hope you had as much fun exploring this mystery with us as we did. Until next time, keep those minds curious.